The virtuous fisherman Avreml. Baruch stayed on in Vitebsk, for although he was well learned and possessed the highest virtues, he was not yet satisfied with himself. He was determined to learn more and more and improve his character until he reached the acme of perfection. He saw a splendid opportunity to learn from his brother-in-law Yosef Yitzchak and from the dean of the Vitebsk yeshiva, Rabbi Paltiel. On the other hand, Baruch knew that when it came to good deeds and virtues, it was not necessary to confine oneself to learning from scholars. These virtues were very often to be found in the uneducated worker, the ordinary man on the street. Baruch had no need to look very far for such an example. There was in Vitebsk itself such a man, one whom he remembered from his earliest childhood, and who had made so great an impression upon him that he never forgot him. This was none other than Avreml the fisherman, whom everyone in the district called Avreml the Lip, on account of the prominence of his thick, red, protruding lower lip. This Avreml lived but 3 doors away from where Baruch's parents used to live, on the outskirts of the town, not far from the river Dvina. Avreml was a simple soul who could just about manage to say his prayers and with the greatest effort understand their meaning. Nevertheless, he was a truly God-fearing Jew. Every morning and evening he attended the services at the Beis Medrash, praying devoutly, and he invariably stayed behind to listen to the Shir on Ein Yaakov or Medrash, or else he would take himself to a corner and recite a few chapters of Tehillim with great feeling. Avramel's sons were quite good scholars. He had spared no expense to have them educated by the best teachers obtainable, and later on he had them sent to study at the yeshiva. Unfortunately, they died during his lifetime and left him their children to take care for. This he did unstingingly. He gave them the best Jewish education possible so that they should grow up to be well versed in the Torah. In addition to being devoted to the Almighty, Avremel was very careful in his attitude towards his fellows. He was so charitable that his generosity would not have shamed a far richer man. Baruch remembered so well how Avremel used to call round on the Shabbos afternoons in the summertime and stand outside their window, listening to his mother reading out the Tzena Orena. All his mother's friends in the neighborhood used to gather together to listen to her reading with great interest. Avraham was the only man to come, and he used to stand outside the window and listen in evident enjoyment. His intellect was on par with that of the woman present, and the Taich Chumash just about suited him. He managed, in fact, to learn quite a great deal from these attendances. While there might have been many men who would look down on Avremel for resorting to the woman's Chumash, Baruch, although still a child, felt sorry for him. Indeed, he felt that his pity was out of place and that he should rather respect him for not hesitating to learn even from a woman when it meant satisfying his passion for knowledge. Avraham used to go out to the river Dvina to catch fish and then bring it to the market to sell direct to the customers. Any fish left over he used to bring home and sell to his poor neighbors for next to nothing. And if he knew that any of them could not afford to pay anything, he would give them the fish without any charge at all. Once, when Avremel brought some fish home, left over from his sales in the market, he asked his family to dispose of it for him in the usual way. To his dismay, he heard, on his return home, that some customer had, by mistake, been overcharged a few groschen. They all tried to remember who the buyers had been, what they had bought, and what they had been charged. They checked up on all of them, but could not trace the customer who had been overcharged. Then they remembered that one of the customers on this particular occasion was a peasant whom no one knew. Avromel decided that this must have been the person who he had cheated. But how was it possible to rectify the mistake when nobody knew who he was or where he lived? Avromel could not rest. It worried him so. At last, he decided to seek the advice of Baruch's father and asked him almost tearfully, "Do please tell me what to do. I feel as though I have robbed someone." "Give the amount of the overcharge to charity," advised Nir Zalman, Baruch's father. "Oh, I couldn't do that," protested Avremel. "That would mean that I would be sharing the mitzvah of giving charity with the peasant. On the other hand, it would be wrong to throw the money into the river," he agreed. Baruch was too young to remember the outcome of the story as to what Avremel did about the overcharge of the few groschen. But he remembered very well that his own father often used to refer to the high principles of Avreml, whom he began to call Reb Avram, and whom he treated with the greatest respect. Baruch recalled how his father said to him in this connection, "You see, my son, we are told in the Gemara Chulin 92a that ordinary people referred to as Amei Haaretz are compared to the leaves of the vine. These leaves protect the vine just as the ordinary people protect the scholars. It is indeed an admirable thing for a scholar to possess the simplicity and good heartedness of an unlearned Jew." And so Baruch already learned as a child that however deeply he delved into Torah study, when it came to learning the virtues of fine character, he had but to turn to the common Jew and his excellent qualities. It was, in fact, with this aim in mind that he originally left Vitebsk to wander into the world beyond. And now, back again in Vitebsk after so many years of wandering, working, studying, and striving to improve his character, he still felt that he must climb ever higher on the ladder of human perfection. To most people, Baruch's way of life would suggest a dual character. In the spiritual realm, as when he was studying the Torah, he concentrated so completely that he positively lived with the Tanaim and Amoraim and discussed and disputed with them as if they stood before him in the flesh. Yet, he was just as conscientious when it came to a job of work. Here in the material world, he also gave himself completely to whatever he had to do, as if nothing else existed for him. That was why his various employers were always so delighted with him. Baruch presented a paradox, apparently living in two entirely different worlds, the world of Torah and the world of labor. Yet, how harmoniously he managed to combine the two into one perfect whole. Was there anyone who could understand and appreciate the depth of a soul such as Baruch's, that could combine the spiritual and material so beautifully? Baruch did not seek recognition, but yet there was Avram, the gardener of Liajna. Avram had recognized Baruch's greatness and fineness, but Baruch had run away from him. Would their paths meet again? It was hard to know whether Baruch even thought about it during the first days of his return to Vitebsk. Having settled in Vitebsk, Baruch had little to worry him. He still had something of his savings to cover his small expenditure. The main thing for him was to be able to carry on with his Torah study, and the Vitebsk yeshiva, where his brother-in-law and the Gaon Rabbi Patil gave shiurim, was completely satisfying. When, a little later, Baruch saw his savings disappearing, he followed his usual practice of looking for some work to do. This he found without difficulty, being that he was prepared to accept any job, however heavy, as long as it was honest. He came across a new building in the course of erection and offered his services on an hourly basis so that he could be free to devote to his studies as much time as he could afford. He was he was accepted, and he put in only as many hours as earned for him the cost of his modest and meager needs. And so the summer passed, Baruch feeling quite at home again in this, his birthplace. Nobody bothered him, and he was, in any case, sufficiently assured and independent now to follow his own path. Little did Baruch know that while he was living so serenely in Vitebsk, there was someone in Liajna worrying a great deal about him and about the possible reason for his disappearance. This was, of course, Avram the gardener.